The meeting room of the Times, Celestial Covenant Times, hummed with the sound of different voices. Hana sat in the back corner, her hands folded on the metal table. She watched the alien crew members fill the space. They were all so different from each other, and even more different from her. Commander Vex stood at the front of the room. He was a Krillian, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick scales covering his body like armor. His eyes were cold and yellow, like a snake's eyes. He looked at the data screen and then turned to face the crew. "We have a problem," Vex said, his voice deep and rough. "The lower maintenance decks need repairs. The cooling systems are failing. Someone must go down there and fix them." Hana knew what was coming. She had been on this ship for 6 months now, and it was always the same. The aliens looked at the humans like they were made of glass. Fragile. Weak. Not worth much. "The human crew will handle it," Vex continued. He didn't even look at Hana or the other humans. "It's simple work, safe enough for their delicate bodies." A few of the alien crew members laughed. Hana felt her face grow warm, but she kept her expression calm. Beside her, she could feel her brother Deho tense up. His jaw was tight, and his hands became fists under the table. Thex, another Krillian engineer, stood up. He was shorter than Vex, but just as strong-looking. "Are we sure the humans can even handle that?" he asked, grinning. "Last week, one of them got a bruise just from bumping into a door frame." More laughter filled the room. Hana knew they were talking about Minho, another human crew member who had accidentally walked into a door. It was a normal accident, but the aliens acted like it proved something important about all humans. "Humans are too soft," said a Valoran named Kel. The Valorans were made of a crystalline material that looked like colored glass. Kel's body glowed faintly blue in the light. Their skin tears easily. Their bones break from small falls. How did they even reach space? "With a lot of protective gear," someone said, and everyone laughed again. Vex raised his hand, and the room became quiet. "Enough," he said. "The humans will do the maintenance work. That's final." He looked directly at Hana for the first time. "You're the engineer, correct?" "Yes, sir," Hana said quietly. "Then you'll lead the repairs. Take your brother and the other humans. Stay out of the way of the real crew." Hana nodded slowly. She didn't argue. There was no point. Not yet. The meeting ended, and the crew began to leave. Deho grabbed Hana's arm as soon as they were in the hallway. His eyes were angry. "Why do you let them talk to us like that?" he demanded. "We're part of this crew too. We deserve respect." "I know," Hana said calmly. She pulled her arm free gently. "But getting angry won't change their minds. So what? We just accept it?" "No. We watch. We learn. We wait." Deho shook his head but said nothing more. They walked together to the lower maintenance decks where the other human crew members were already gathering. There were 12 humans total on the Times Celestial Covenant *. 12 humans among a crew of over 200 aliens. Yuna, the ship's human medical officer, was checking equipment when Hana and Deho arrived. She looked up and smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Another special assignment for the humans?" she asked. "The cooling systems," Hana confirmed. "Apparently, we're the only ones fragile enough to do simple repairs." "They think they're insulting us," Yuna said quietly. "But they don't understand that we've survived worse than this. Earth wasn't an easy planet. We didn't evolve in comfort." Hana looked at Yuna with interest. The medical officer had been studying something in her free time. Hana knew. Something about human biology and how it compared to the aliens. But Yuna hadn't shared her findings yet. Before Hana could ask, a loud sound echoed through the deck. The crew turned to see Vex and Thex entering the maintenance area. They weren't supposed to be here. This was human work, they had said. "Just wanted to see how the fragile ones handle real work," Vex said. He picked up a maintenance rod from the equipment rack. It was made of steel, about 3 feet long and an inch thick. "You see this?" he asked. Holding it up, the humans watched silently. "This is basic steel. Not even reinforced alloy." Vex gripped both ends of the rod. His muscles bulged under his scales. Slowly, with a sound of groaning metal, the rod began to bend. In less than 10 seconds, Vex had bent the steel rod into a U shape. He tossed it on the floor at Hana's feet. That's real strength. That's what a proper crew member can do. Vex laughed and picked up another rod. He bent it even faster than Vex, showing off. Any of you humans want to try? He asked mockingly. None of the humans moved. They knew they couldn't bend steel with their bare hands. Their bodies weren't built that way. Not yet. That's what I thought, Vex said. He looked at Hana with something like pity. You're not strong. You're not durable. Your bones are hollow and weak compared to ours. Your skin is thin. Your muscles are tiny. I don't understand why the Galactic Alliance even accepted Earth. You're a liability. Hana bent down and picked up the bent steel rod. She studied it carefully, running her fingers along the twisted metal. She was thinking, always thinking. Strength comes in different forms, she said quietly. What was that? Vex asked. Hana looked up at him. Her eyes were calm and clear. Nothing, Commander. We'll get the repairs done. Vex snorted and turned to leave. Make sure you do. And try not to break yourselves doing it. Vex followed him, still laughing. When the Krillians were gone, Deho exploded. I can't stand this. I can't stand them treating us like we're nothing. They think they know what we are, Hana said softly. She was still holding the bent steel rod, feeling its weight. They think they've figured us out. But they're wrong. How are they wrong? Minho asked. He was young, barely 20, and still new to space. They are stronger than us. That's just a fact. Right now, they are, Yuna said. She had been quiet, but now she spoke with certainty. But strength isn't everything. And humans have something else, something these aliens don't understand yet. What's that? Minho asked. Yuna smiled mysteriously. Let's just say I've been noticing some interesting things about our bodies since we left Earth. The stress of space travel, the different gravity, the radiation exposure. Our bodies are responding in ways that surprise me. Hana looked at Yuna with sharp interest. What kind of ways? I'll tell you when I'm sure, Yuna said. For now, let's do our work. Let them think we're weak. Let them think they know us. Time will show them the truth. Hana nodded slowly. She set down the bent steel rod and picked up her tools. As she worked on the cooling systems, her mind was racing. She thought about Earth, about human history, about all the times humans had been underestimated. She thought about how humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters. Fragile? Maybe. But fragile things could be surprisingly hard to break. And sometimes, the things that bent didn't break at all. They just became stronger. She didn't know it yet. But soon, very soon, she would prove that to everyone on this ship. She would show them what human fragility really meant. She would show them what happened when you pushed a human too far. She would bend steel with her bare hands, and they would finally understand. 3 months had passed since Hana bent down to pick up that steel rod. 3 months of doing the work nobody else wanted to do. 3 months of quiet watching and learning. But something was changing. The time Celestial Covenant Times was flying through a region of space that most ships avoided. Captain Wrath, the Valoran commander of the vessel, had chosen this route because it was faster. He said the risks were small. He said his crew could handle anything. He was wrong about a lot of things. The first sign of trouble came during the night shift. Hana was in her quarters, trying to sleep, when the ship suddenly lurched. She felt her body lift off the bed for a moment, then slam back down. The gravity had flickered, just for a second, but it happened. Hana got dressed quickly and went to the engineering deck. Other crew members were already there, looking confused and worried. The ship's artificial gravity systems were malfunctioning. The spatial anomalies in this region were stronger than anyone had predicted. It's the gravitational fields outside, explained Jinwoo, another human engineer. He was older than Hana, with gray in his hair. They're interfering with our systems, creating fluctuations. Can we fix it? Hana asked. Not while we're traveling through this region. We have to ride it out. Jinwoo looked concerned. The fluctuations might get worse. He was right. Over the next few days, the gravity aboard the ship became unstable. Sometimes it would drop to almost nothing, making everyone float. Other times it would spike to twice or even 3 times normal Earth gravity, making everything feel impossibly heavy. The alien crew members struggled badly. The Krillians, so proud of their strength, became slow and clumsy in low gravity. Their heavy bodies were built for solid ground. In zero gravity, they floated helplessly, unable to move properly. The Valorans had the opposite problem. When gravity increased, their crystalline bodies began to crack under the pressure. Kel developed stress fractures along his arms and had to be treated in medical. Other species had their own problems. The Thorians, who looked like large insects with multiple legs, couldn't balance when gravity kept changing. The Mecrons, machine-like beings, found their systems overwhelmed by the constant adjustments needed. But the humans adapted. It was strange. And it surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. When gravity dropped, humans moved through the air with natural grace. When gravity increased, humans bent their knees and kept working. They were uncomfortable, yes. Tired, yes. But they kept functioning. Vex noticed it during a particularly bad gravity spike. He was in the cargo bay, trying to secure loose equipment. When the gravity suddenly tripled, he dropped to his knees with a grunt, his scales scraping against the metal floor. Other alien crew members nearby collapsed completely. Daeho was there too. He staggered under the increased gravity, his face showing pain. But he didn't fall. He moved slowly to a cargo container that was sliding across the floor. He grabbed it with both hands and pushed it to the wall. His muscles strained, sweat poured down his face. But he did it. When the gravity returned to normal, Vex stood up slowly. He looked at Daeho with something new in his eyes. Not quite respect, but maybe the beginning of it. Or perhaps just confusion. How? Vex asked simply. Daeho shrugged, breathing hard. I don't know. It just felt like I had to do it, so I did. Hana saw the whole thing. She had been watching from the cargo bay entrance. That night, she went to see Yuna in the medical bay. Something is happening to us, Hana said without greeting. Tell me what you know. Yuna looked up from her computer screen. She had been expecting this conversation. Close the door, she said quietly. When they were alone, Yuna pulled up her medical scans. I've been monitoring all the humans on this ship since we left Earth. Taking blood samples, bone density scans, muscle readings, all in secret. And? Hana leaned forward. We're changing, Yuna said simply. Not in a bad way. At least, I don't think it's bad. But definitely changing. Your bone density has increased by 15% in 3 months. Your muscle fibers are restructuring. Your body is producing higher levels of certain hormones. What does that mean? It means your body is adapting to the stress. The variable gravity, the cosmic radiation, the pressure of deep space. Human bodies were built to adapt. Hana. We evolved on a planet that was constantly changing. Ice ages, climate shifts, altitude changes, different environments. Our DNA remembers how to change with the world around us. Hana looked at her own hands. They didn't look different. But when she made a fist, she could feel something new there, a kind of strength that hadn't existed before. Is this happening to all of us? Yes. Every human on this ship, some faster than others. Daeho's changes are particularly strong. He's younger and more physically active, but even Jinwoo is showing adaptation. What about you? Yuna smiled. I'm adapting too. My reaction time has increased. My eyesight is sharper. My body is becoming more efficient. Does anyone else know? Not yet. And I'm not sure we should tell them. Not until we understand it better. Yuna closed her computer screen. The aliens think they know what humans are. They think we're weak and fragile. Let them keep thinking that. But secrets don't stay hidden forever, especially on a ship where everyone lives close together. The aliens began to notice that the humans were handling the gravity fluctuations better than anyone else. Whispers started spreading through the crew. 1 week later, during a meeting to discuss the ship's route, Vex brought it up directly. "The humans are not struggling like the rest of us," he said, looking at Captain Wrath. "Why is that?" Captain Wrath's crystalline body glowed thoughtfully. He was a fair leader, more open-minded than Vex, but still limited by his assumptions. "Perhaps humans are simply more used to changing conditions. Their home planet has variable gravity zones, doesn't it?" "Earth has the same gravity everywhere," Hana said quietly. She was at the meeting to report on engineering status. "But Earth's environment changes a lot. Different climates, different altitudes, different seasons. Humans evolved to handle change. That doesn't explain why they're getting better while we're getting worse," Vex said. The Krillian looked frustrated. "It doesn't make sense. They're the weakest species here." "Are they?" Yuna asked. She had been invited to report on crew health. "Maybe we've been measuring strength wrong. Maybe strength isn't just about how much you can lift. Maybe it's about how much you can endure." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying humans are stronger than Krillians?" "I'm saying humans are different than Krillians," Yuna replied calmly. "Different isn't weaker. It's just different." The meeting ended without agreement. But something had shifted. The aliens were no longer completely sure of themselves. And the humans were no longer completely sure of their limits. That night, Hana couldn't sleep. Her body ached in a strange way. Not painful, exactly. More like growing pains, like her bones and muscles were being rebuilt from the inside out. She got up and went to the small gym that the human crew used. The gym was empty. Hana walked to the weight rack and picked up a dumbbell. It was marked as 50 pounds. Before leaving Earth, that would have been heavy for her. She would have needed both hands. Now, she lifted it with one hand. Easily, like it weighed nothing. She set it down and picked up a 100-pound weight. Still manageable. She moved to a heavier one. 150 pounds. She could lift it. Her arm shook. But she could do it. "This isn't normal," she whispered to herself. "No. It's not," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Deho entering the gym. "I can't sleep either. My body feels weird. Strong. But weird." Yuna says, "We're adapting." Adapting to what? To space. To stress. To whatever we need to survive. Hana set down the weight. "Deho, what if we're not done changing? What if this is just the beginning?" Her brother looked at his own hands, opening and closing them slowly. "Then, I guess the aliens are going to be very surprised." They didn't know how right they were. The ship was heading deeper into the anomaly zone. The worst was yet to come. And when it came, the humans would have to become something even stronger than they were now. Something that could survive anything. Something that could bend steel and break barriers and show the galaxy what human fragility really meant. The pressure was building. And pressure was exactly what humans needed to become extraordinary. The alarms woke everyone at the same time. Red lights flashed through every corridor of the Times, Celestial Covenant asterisk. The ship was shaking violently, like it was being torn apart. Hana ran to the bridge, still pulling on her uniform. Other crew members were doing the same, stumbling through the shaking hallways. When she reached the bridge, she saw Captain Wrath gripping his command chair. His crystalline body was flickering with stress. "Debris field," he said grimly. "We didn't see it until too late." It was hidden in the spatial anomalies. Through the main viewing screen, Hana could see chunks of metal and rock flying past the ship. They were moving through an old battlefield, scattered with destroyed vessels from some ancient war. The debris was everywhere, and the Times Celestial Covenant Times was too big and slow to dodge it all. Something large hit the ship's side. The impact threw everyone to the floor. More alarms screamed. Systems were failing. The engines were damaged. Life support was critical. "We need to land," Vex shouted over the noise. "Now," Captain Wrath checked his scanners. "There's a planet nearby. Designated Terminus 7. It's not hospitable, But it's our only choice. Do it, Vex commanded. The landing was not controlled. It was a crash. The ship fell through the atmosphere of Terminus 7 like a burning stone. Hana held onto her seat and prayed to gods she wasn't sure she believed in. The ship hit the ground hard, skidded across rocky terrain, and finally stopped against the side of a mountain. Then there was silence, terrible silence. Slowly, crew members began moving, checking themselves for injuries, helping others stand up. Hana had a cut on her forehead and a bruised shoulder, but she was alive. Deho found her quickly, pulling her into a brief hug. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." "You?" "I'm good." They went to assess the damage. It was bad, very bad. The ship's main engines were destroyed. Communications were offline. The hull was breached in multiple places. They were stranded on this planet until rescue could arrive. If rescue could arrive, Yuna gathered all the humans in the medical bay. She checked everyone for injuries, moving quickly and efficiently. "Listen to me," she said quietly when she was done. "This planet is going to be hard on all of us, but especially on the aliens. The gravity here is much higher than Earth normal, and the atmosphere is toxic." "How high?" "My scanner says 3.2 times Earth standard. For us, that's going to be exhausting and painful. For the aliens, it's going to be crippling." "What about the atmosphere?" "We can breathe it, barely. It has enough oxygen, but it's full of sulfur compounds and other chemicals. The aliens will need respirators. We might be okay without them, but we'll need to be careful." Captain Wrath called an emergency meeting. The entire surviving crew gathered in the cargo bay, the only space large enough to hold everyone. 97 crew members remained. 12 of them were human. "Our communications array is damaged," Captain Wrath explained. His voice was weaker than usual. The landing had cracked his body in several places. "But there's a backup array on the other side of the mountain range. It's about 40 kilometers from here. We need to reach it and send a distress signal." "I'll lead a team," Vex said. He tried to stand straight, but the heavy gravity was already affecting him. His powerful muscles were struggling under the increased weight. "We'll take the strongest crew members." "The journey won't be easy," Captain Wrath warned. "The terrain is harsh. Mountains, rocks, extreme temperatures. And this gravity will make everything harder." Vex looked around the room. His eyes passed over the humans without stopping. "I'll choose my team. We leave in 1 hour. The rest of you stay with the ship and begin repairs." Hana stood up. "We want to come." Vex looked at her like she had said something stupid. "No. This journey is too dangerous for humans. You'll slow us down." "We can help," Deho said, standing beside his sister. "No," Vex repeated firmly. "This is not your mission. Stay here where it's safe." But Yuna stepped forward too. "Commander, with respect, you need medical support. And I'm the only medical officer who survived the crash. You need me." Vex's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. "Fine. The medical officer can come. But no other humans. If Yuna goes, we all go," Hana said quietly. "We're a crew. We stay together." For a long moment, Vex stared at Hana. Then he looked at Captain Wrath. The captain's body flickered thoughtfully. "Let them come," Wrath said. "We may need all the help we can get." Vex didn't like it, but he nodded. "Fine. But don't expect us to slow down for you." 1 hour later, the expedition team gathered at the ship's exit ramp. 20 crew members total, including all 12 humans. Vex had chosen the strongest aliens, other Krillians like Thex, the insect-like Thorians who normally had good endurance, and a few others. He had not expected to need the humans, but Captain Wrath had insisted. They stepped out onto the surface of Terminus 7, and immediately, everyone felt the difference. The gravity pressed down on them like a physical weight. The air smelled of sulfur and tasted bitter. The temperature was cold, maybe minus 20 degrees. In a few hours, the planet would rotate, and it would become burning hot. The aliens struggled immediately. The Krillians could barely walk. Their thick bodies, so impressive in normal gravity, became terrible burdens here. Each step was an effort. The Thorians had better luck with their multiple legs, but even they were slowing down. The humans struggled too. The gravity made every movement exhausting. Hana felt like she was carrying a heavy backpack with every step. Her legs ached. Her back hurt. Breathing was difficult, but they kept moving. One foot in front of the other. Again and again. By the end of the first day, they had traveled only 8 kilometers. They made camp in a rocky canyon that provided some shelter from the wind. Everyone was exhausted. The aliens were in terrible condition. Kel, the Valoran, had developed more stress fractures. 2 of the Krillians could barely move. The humans were tired and sore, but they were functional. They helped set up the camp, gathering rocks to make a windbreak. They helped distribute food and water from the supplies they carried. Vex watched them with confusion in his eyes. "How are you doing this?" he asked Hana, as she helped one of the injured Krillians settle in for the night. "Doing what?" "Still moving. Still working. You should be the first ones to collapse. Your bodies are weaker than ours." Hana looked at him. Her body ached everywhere. She felt like she weighed 1,000 pounds. But she also felt something else. A strength deep in her bones, a resilience that was growing. "Maybe our bodies aren't as weak as you think," she said simply. That night, while the others slept, Yuna took Hana aside. "I need to tell you something," she whispered. "I've been scanning us, all the humans. Our bodies are adapting again. Faster this time. Much faster." "What do you mean?" "The high gravity is triggering something. The same thing that happened on the ship, but intensified. Our bones are becoming denser. Our muscles are restructuring. It's like our bodies are rebuilding themselves to handle the pressure. Is it safe? I don't know. But I know it's happening." Yuna looked at her hands in the dim light. "Hana, I think we're going to become stronger than we've ever been. Strong enough to survive this planet. Maybe strong enough to do things we never thought possible. The aliens can't adapt like this? No. Their bodies are built for specific conditions. They're optimized for their home worlds. But humans evolved on a planet that never stayed the same. We're built to change, to adapt, to survive anything." Hana thought about this. She thought about Earth, about human history, about all the times humans had faced impossible odds and somehow survived. Maybe Yuna was right. Maybe this was what humans were made for. Not comfort, not easy living, but struggle, challenge, the pressure that turned coal into diamonds. The next morning, they continued their journey. The terrain became worse. Steeper slopes, jagged rocks. The temperature rose as the planet rotated toward its sun. Soon it was over 40 degrees. The aliens suffered even more. The humans suffered too, but they kept moving. On the 3rd day, 2 of the Krillians couldn't continue. They had to stay behind with some supplies while the others went on. The expedition was down to 18 crew members. The humans remained at 12. The aliens were down to 6. Vex no longer gave orders that excluded the humans. He was too weak. Everyone was too weak. They worked together now. Out of necessity, Daeho carried extra equipment when Kel could no longer manage the weight. Jinwoo helped a Thorian named Rix navigate the rocky paths with his limited vision. On the 5th day, they reached the mountain range. The mountains stood before them like impossible walls. And somewhere on the other side was the communications array. Their only hope of rescue. They started climbing. The gravity made it feel like they were climbing with chains attached to their bodies. Every meter upward was agony. Hana's hands were bleeding from gripping the sharp rocks. Her legs shook with effort, but she kept climbing, and something inside her was changing, growing, becoming something new. They reached the top of the first mountain on day 7. Hana pulled herself over the final edge and collapsed on the rocky ground. Her entire body was screaming with pain. Her muscles felt like they were on fire. Her bones ached deep inside, like they were being crushed and reformed at the same time. But she was alive. And when she looked back down the way they had come, She felt something like pride. They had climbed that. Humans had climbed that. The others pulled themselves up one by one. Deho came next. Then Yuna. Then the other humans. The aliens came last. Moving slowly. Their bodies at their absolute limits. Vex dragged himself over the edge and lay on the ground, breathing hard. His scales, usually shiny and strong, looked dull and cracked. "Water," Vex gasped. "I need water." They shared what little water remained. The supplies were running low. Everything was running low. Hope most of all. Kel, the Valoran, was in the worst condition. His crystalline body was covered in cracks. Some pieces had actually broken off. He looked like a shattered window that was barely staying together. "I can't go further," he whispered. "Leave me here." "We don't leave anyone," Hana said firmly. She helped him sit up and gave him water. "We rest here for a few hours. Then we continue together." "Look," Jinwoo said, pointing ahead. Through the thin, toxic air, they could see the mountain range continuing, peak after peak, stretching toward the horizon. And somewhere beyond them was the communications array. "We'll never make it," one of the Thorians said. Her name was Rin, and she had been strong at the start of the journey. Now she looked defeated. "Even if we reach the other side, we'll be dead by then." "No," Deho said. His voice was hard and certain. "We'll make it. We have to." They rested for 4 hours. Hana couldn't really sleep. Her body was changing too rapidly. She could feel it happening. Her muscles were twitching and reforming. Her bones felt dense and heavy. When she made a fist, her hand felt like iron. Yuna saw her awake and came to sit beside her. "It's accelerating," the medical officer whispered. "The adaptations. All of us. Your bone density is double what it was when we left Earth. Your muscle fibers are completely restructured. You're becoming something different, Hana. Is it permanent? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe your body will return to normal when the stress is removed. Either way, right now, you're much stronger than any human has ever been." "Strong enough to bend steel?" Hana asked, remembering Vex's demonstration on the ship so many months ago. Yuna looked at her seriously. "Maybe. I think maybe you could." When they continued their journey, they found their path blocked. A landslide had occurred recently, perhaps triggered by the planet's seismic activity. Massive boulders blocked the only pass through the mountains. Some of the boulders were as big as vehicles. Others were smaller, but still too heavy to move by hand. Vex examined the blockage. He ran his hands over the rocks, testing them. Then he turned to the group with despair in his eyes. "We can't get through, not without equipment. Not without heavy machinery." "Can we go around?" Rix asked. "It would add days to our journey. Maybe weeks. We don't have enough supplies. We don't have enough time." Vex sat down heavily. "We're trapped." The group fell silent. They had come so far, suffered so much. And now this. A wall of rock that might as well be a wall of steel. Hana walked closer to the blockage. She studied it carefully, her engineer's mind working. Most of the boulders were natural rock, but some weren't. Some were artificial. Old mining equipment, support beams, metal structures from ancient operations on this planet. She recognized the metal. It was durasteel alloy, the same type of material that mining companies used for structures that needed to survive extreme conditions. Reinforced, treated, almost impossible to deform or break. But there was one beam that, if removed, might shift the whole structure. Might create a gap large enough for them to squeeze through. It was a support beam, about 4 feet long, maybe 6 inches wide, heavy, strong, designed to hold up mountains. Hana walked up to it. She placed her hands on the cold metal. The alloy was rough under her palms. She could feel the strength of it. The density. The absolute refusal to bend. "What are you doing?" Vex asked tiredly. "That's reinforced alloy, even fresh, back on the ship. You couldn't have bent it. Now, You're exhausted, injured, human. It's impossible. Hana didn't answer. She was thinking about everything that had happened. Every insult. Every dismissal. Every time the aliens had looked at humans and seen only fragility, she was thinking about how wrong they were. How they had mistaken the ability to break for weakness. How they had never understood that humans didn't survive because they were strong. They survived because they refused to stay broken. Her body was exhausted. More than exhausted. It was operating beyond anything that should be possible. Her muscles were pain. Her bones were agony. Every cell was screaming, but that screaming was also power. She gripped the alloy beam with both hands. Her fingers wrapped around the metal. She set her stance, planting her feet on the rocky ground. She took a deep breath of the bitter, sulfur-filled air, and she pulled. At first, nothing happened. The beam didn't move. It was solid, immovable, impossible. But Hana didn't stop. She pulled harder. She thought about her brother, who had carried weight no human should carry. She thought about Yuna, who had kept them all alive with her knowledge. She thought about every human who had ever faced something impossible and done it anyway. The metal groaned. It was a small sound at first, a whisper of protest. But it was there. The alloy was feeling pressure. Real pressure. Hana's muscles were cords of steel under her skin. Her bones were diamond hard. Her hands were gripping the metal so tightly that her fingerprints were leaving impressions in the surface. Sweat poured down her face despite the cold. Blood vessels stood out on her neck and arms. The metal groaned louder. Everyone was watching now. Watching with disbelief. With shock. With growing awe, the alloy beam began to bend, slowly, millimeter by millimeter. The reinforced durasteel, designed to support mining operations under extreme pressure, was deforming under the grip of human hands. Hana's hands, the hands they had called weak, the hands they had mocked. Impossible, Vex whispered. He stood up, moving closer, unable to believe what he was seeing. That's impossible. No biological being can bend reinforced alloy. Not even Krillians. Not even enhanced machines. But Hana was doing it. The beam bent more. The groaning became a shriek of tortured metal. 30 degrees. 40. 50. Hana's face showed the strain. Her teeth were clenched. Her eyes were focused with an intensity that was almost frightening. She wasn't just bending metal. She was bending reality. She was breaking every assumption the galaxy had made about her species. The beam reached 90 degrees, a perfect right angle. It had bent completely under her hands. Hana released it. The beam fell to the ground with a clang that echoed through the mountain pass. She stood there, breathing hard, her entire body trembling. Her hands were bleeding where the metal had cut her skin. Her arms were shaking from the effort. But she was standing. She was alive. And she had done the impossible. The silence was absolute. Then Deho laughed. It was a sound of pure joy. He ran to his sister and grabbed her shoulders. You did it! You actually did it! Yuna was crying. Tears ran down her face as she looked at Hana. I knew it. I knew we could. The other humans erupted in celebration. They hugged each other. They laughed and cried and celebrated this moment that proved everything they had always believed about themselves, that they were more than they appeared, that they were survivors, that they could do anything. The aliens stared in shock. Vex walked slowly to the bent beam. He picked it up with both hands, feeling its weight. He looked at the perfect right-angle bend. He ran his claws over the indentations where Hana's fingers had gripped the metal. His entire worldview was crumbling. How? He asked quietly. He looked at Hana with new eyes. Not with contempt. Not with pity. With respect. Maybe even with fear. How is this possible? Hana looked at him. Her chest was still heaving. Her body was still trembling. But her voice was steady. You kept asking how humans reach space. How we survived with our fragile bodies. You thought it was luck. Or technology. Or some trick. She picked up the bent beam with one hand. It was heavy, but she held it easily now. But it wasn't any of those things. We reached space the same way we survived every ice age, every plague, every disaster in our history. Not because we're strong, but because we adapt. We change. We become whatever we need to become to survive. She dropped the beam at Vex's feet. You called us fragile. You were right. We are fragile. We break easily. We scar. We feel pain like fire. But you made a mistake. You thought fragile meant weak. You didn't understand that sometimes the things that bend don't break. They just become stronger. She turned back to the rock slide. Using the gap created by the removed beam, she began moving other rocks, smaller ones, creating a path, and her fellow humans joined her. Together, working with their newfound strength, they cleared enough space for the group to pass through. The aliens watched. They didn't help. They couldn't. They were too shocked, too confused. Their entire understanding of the universe had just been shattered by a human woman bending metal with her bare hands. When the path was clear, Hana looked back at them. Are you coming? She asked. Or are you going to stay here? Vex stood up slowly. He looked at his own hands, his powerful, scaled hands that had bent steel so easily on the ship, hands that couldn't do what Hana had just done. He looked at his crew, at the Krillians and Thorians and Valorans who were all watching the humans with new eyes. We're coming, he said quietly. And we're sorry. We were wrong about you. About all of you. We're sorry. Hana nodded once. Then she turned and led the way through the mountains. The fragile human. The weak one. The one who had just done what no one in the galaxy thought possible. Behind her, the expedition followed. Not because she ordered them to, but because she had earned the right to lead. They would reach the communications array. They would send the signal. They would be rescued. But nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy was about to learn a truth about humanity, a truth written in bent metal and broken assumptions. Humans were not fragile. They were just getting started. The communications array stood on top of the last mountain, like a metal skeleton reaching for the stars. It was old, built decades ago as an emergency backup system. But it still worked. When they finally reached it on day 11, everyone collapsed. They had walked 40 kilometers through hell. They had climbed mountains that should have killed them. They had survived temperatures that swung from freezing to burning. They had done the impossible. Hana and Jinwoo worked on the array while the others rested. Their fingers moved over the controls, bypassing damaged circuits and routing power through backup systems. It took 6 hours, but finally, the array powered up. The signal went out, a distress call. Their location, a request for immediate rescue. Then they waited. The rescue ships arrived 3 days later. 2 vessels from the Galactic Alliance, equipped for dangerous retrieval operations. When the rescue teams came down to the surface, they were shocked by what they found. They expected to find dead crew members or dying ones. Instead, they found survivors, exhausted, injured, but alive. The humans were standing. The aliens were barely conscious. The rescue medics worked quickly, loading everyone onto the ships and getting them off Terminus 7 as fast as possible. During the flight to the nearest Alliance station, the rescue team kept asking questions. How did you survive? How did you make it through that terrain? How are the humans still functional? Vex told them the truth. He told them about Hana bending the reinforced alloy. He showed them the bent beam, which he had insisted on bringing with them as proof. The rescue team didn't believe him at first. Then they scanned the beam and confirmed it was genuine reinforced durasteel. Then they scanned Hana and the other humans. The results shocked everyone. At the Alliance medical station, Hana sat in a bright white room while doctors from 5 different species examined her. They took blood samples. They scanned her bones. They tested her muscle strength. They asked endless questions. This is extraordinary, said Dr. Vess, a Valoran physician. Her crystalline body glowed with excitement. Your bone density is 230% of normal human baseline. Your muscle fibers have completely restructured. You're producing hormone levels that should be impossible. And according to your medical officer, This all happened in less than 4 months? Yes, Hana said. She felt strange now. Sitting in a comfortable chair, in normal gravity, in clean air. Her body didn't know what to do without the constant pressure. She felt restless. It happened gradually. Then quickly when we crashed on Terminus 7. And you can bend reinforced alloy with your bare hands? I could. I did. I don't know if I still can. I haven't tried since we left the planet. Dr. Vess made notes. We need to understand this. If humans can adapt this rapidly, this dramatically, it changes everything we thought we knew about biology, about evolution, about what's possible. Over the next week, all 12 humans were studied extensively. The results were consistent. Every human who had been on the Times Celestial Covenant times had undergone rapid physical adaptation. The changes were most extreme in Hana and Deho. But they were present in everyone. Even Jinwoo, the oldest human at 53, showed remarkable enhancement. Yuna worked with the Alliance scientists to document everything. Her secret research from the ship became the foundation for a whole new field of study. The scientists called it crisis evolution, or stress adaptation. But Yuna had a simpler name for it. She called it humanity's survival mechanism. Humans evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them, she explained during a presentation to the Alliance Scientific Council. Ice ages, climate change, predators, disease, altitude changes. Every generation faced different challenges. So humans evolved, the ability to evolve, not over thousands of years, but over months or weeks or even days when necessary. She showed scans and data. She showed the bent alloy beam. She showed video recordings from the ship's security cameras that captured moments of human adaptation. Other species evolved for stability, Yuna continued. They became optimized for their home worlds, perfect for specific conditions. But humans never had stability. We had chaos. And chaos made us flexible, adaptable, capable of becoming whatever we needed to be. The council chamber was silent. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their seats, processing this information. Finally, one of them spoke. It was Ambassador Rel, a Krillian like Vex, but older and more powerful. This means humans are more dangerous than we realized, Rel said slowly. If they can adapt to any environment, become strong enough to bend alloy, survive conditions that kill other species, they could become a threat, or an asset, Captain Wrath said. He had recovered from his injuries and was attending the meeting. His crystalline body had been repaired, but he still moved carefully. Humans didn't attack us. They didn't try to dominate us. They helped us survive. They saved lives, including mine. Vex stood up. He looked different now. Humbler, changed by his experience. I wronged the humans, he said formally. I judged them as fragile and weak. I was blinded by my own prejudice. But they proved themselves on Terminus 7. They proved their worth. They deserve our respect and our apology. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some agreed with Vex. Others were still afraid of what humans might become. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the council reached a decision. Humanity would remain in the Galactic Alliance. But more than that, humans would be recognized as having unique capabilities. New roles would be created for them. When Alliance ships needed to explore harsh environments, humans would lead those missions. When colonies faced extreme conditions, humans would be the first settlers. When other species couldn't survive, humans would be called. The humans became known as the endurance caste. The ones who could survive anything. The ones who adapted. The ones who bent, but never broke. Hana was promoted to chief engineer of a new class of exploration vessel. The Times Unbreakable Times was designed specifically to go places other ships couldn't, to explore deadly planets, navigate dangerous regions, push the boundaries of known space. Its crew would be mixed species, but humans would lead the most dangerous missions. Deho became an instructor at the Alliance Academy. He taught both humans and aliens about survival, about adaptation, about what the body could do when pushed to its limits. His classes were always full. Yuna continued her research, working with Alliance scientists to understand human biology better. She also developed training programs to help humans trigger their adaptive capabilities in controlled ways. Not everyone could bend alloy like Hana, but everyone could become stronger than they thought possible. 3 months after returning from Terminus 7, Hana stood before the Galactic Council to receive a commendation for her service. Representatives from across the galaxy attended the ceremony. It was a formal event, full of speeches and protocols. When it was Hana's turn to speak, she walked to the center of the chamber. She looked small there, surrounded by beings 2 or 3 times her size. But she didn't look weak anymore. Nobody who saw her would ever call her weak again. "I've been asked to explain humanity's survival," she said. Her voice was calm but carried clearly through the chamber. "To explain how we adapted so quickly on Terminus 7. To explain how I bent reinforced alloy with my bare hands." She paused, looking around at all the different species. "The truth is simple. You called us fragile, and you were right. We are fragile. We break easily. We bruise. We scar. We bleed. We feel pain like fire. Our bodies are soft compared to Krillian scales. Our bones are light compared to Valoran crystal. We're weaker than most of you at baseline." She held up her hands, the same hands that had gripped metal and forced it to bend. "But you made a mistake. You thought fragility was the same as weakness. You thought that because we could break, we would break. You didn't understand the most important thing about humanity." Her eyes were fierce now, burning with an intensity that made even the largest aliens shift uncomfortably. "We don't survive because we're strong. We survive because we refuse to stay broken. Push us down, and we get back up. Hit us, and we hit back harder. Put us in impossible conditions, and we become whatever we need to become to survive. You ridiculed our fragility. You should have feared our resilience." She walked to a table where the bent alloy beam was displayed. She picked it up with one hand, holding it for everyone to see. "This beam represents what humans can do when we stop accepting limits. When we stop believing we're weak just because others tell us we are. When we trust in our ability to adapt and overcome." She set the beam down gently. "Humanity didn't come to the stars to conquer. We came to explore, to learn, to find our place among you. We hoped you would see us as equals. Instead, you saw us as lesser, as fragile things that needed protection." Her voice softened slightly. "I don't blame you. We are different from you. Our strength isn't obvious. It doesn't show in thick scales or crystalline armor. It shows in scars that heal, in bones that break and reform stronger, in muscles that adapt to any weight, in minds that refuse to give up." She looked directly at the council leadership. "You've given us new roles in the Alliance. You've called us the endurance caste. You've recognized what we can do, and will prove worthy of that recognition. We'll explore the deadly worlds. We'll survive the impossible conditions. We'll do what others cannot." She smiled slightly. "But remember this. Every human you meet, no matter how small or weak they seem, carries this same resilience. We all have the ability to adapt, to overcome, to become more than we appear. So the next time you see a human and think fragile, remember what that really means. Remember that fragile things can still survive. And sometimes, they survive better than anything else." The chamber erupted in applause. Not just polite applause, but genuine respect. Beings from across the galaxy stood in recognition of what humanity had proven. That strength came in many forms. That survival wasn't about starting strong. It was about refusing to quit. Later that night, Hana stood on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. Deho found her there and stood beside her quietly. "You made quite an impression today," he said. "I just told the truth. It was a good truth." He was quiet for a moment. Do you think we'll always be able to adapt like we did on Terminus 7? Or was that a one-time thing? Hana thought about it. Her body had mostly returned to normal in the months since leaving the planet. She was still stronger than before, but she couldn't bend alloy anymore. At least, not without the pressure that had driven her to it. I think it's always there, she said finally. The capability. But it only comes out when we really need it. When we're pushed to our absolute limits. So we're only superhuman when we have to be? Something like that. But that's enough. That's what makes us human. We rise to challenges. We become what we need to be. We rise to challenges. We rise to challenges. We become what we need to be. They stood together, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. The planet that had forged humanity in fire and ice and endless change. The planet that had made them fragile and resilient at the same time. And somewhere out there were new worlds to explore. New challenges to face. New limits to overcome. The galaxy was vast. And humanity was just beginning to find its place in it. Not as the strongest species. Not as the toughest or the most advanced. But as the survivors. The adapters. The ones who bent, but never broke. The ones who took their fragility and turned it into their greatest strength. Hana smiled as she looked at the stars. The galaxy had ridiculed human fragility. Now they would watch humans do the impossible again and again. And they would finally understand what it meant to be human. It meant never giving up. Never accepting limits. Never staying broken. It meant being fragile and fierce at the same time. It meant surviving anything and everything. No matter what. It meant being human. And that was enough.